Hello and welcome everyone to Six Figure Souls Doing Good and Making Money. This is the weekly podcast highlighting entrepreneurs that have followed their dreams and built a business in alignment with who they are and their lifestyle. I am your host, Camille Miller. I am a business and mindset mentor and founder of the Natural Life Business Partnership and the Soul Professional Movement. Today, we have a really special season 8 where I'm interviewing the members of our Soul Professional Society. And today we have with us Justin Speller, and he is a holistic practitioner. And hello, Justin. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Camille. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. And I just want to say you're located in Connecticut, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And your clients are both online and in person?
So I was seeing both in person and online for a while. And then once COVID hit, I stopped seeing people in person, and I haven't gotten back to that yet. So right now, I'm only doing virtual clients.
Perfect. So everyone that hears you can reach out.
Absolutely.
If it sounds like it's in alignment with who they are and you can help, that's perfect. Excellent.
Totally.
All right. Well, Justin, tell me a little bit about who you are and what your practice is. And then we'll ask a little, because a holistic practitioner is a lot. So let's dive in a little bit to exactly what your practice is and how you help people.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had an interesting journey that started with me wanting to be a medical doctor for many years, because both my parents are psychiatrists, as it turns out. And I don't know if I ever told you that, actually.
Yeah, I did.
So I had a very interesting journey figuring out what I wanted to do, because it clearly was not being a medical doctor, even though that's what I kind of expected that I would be.
Okay.
So I had these expectations, and then my life ended up taking a very different path. And one of the things that kind of led me into what I do now is EFT, or tapping, which I know a lot of people are familiar with these days. And so that's how I kind of started out. That was kind of like the gateway for me into this field. And what I do now is a little bit different. So I spent many years developing my intuitive abilities. I have a wonderful mentor who is an EFT master. That's how I met her. But she kind of schooled me in all these beautiful ways of utilizing your intuition to help people specifically. So what I do when someone comes to me is essentially I assess and balance the flow of energies, right? So we all have energy systems that are outlined in various traditions. And when energy is not flowing in the ideal way, we can get into all sorts of issues in, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. And so what I do is I assess someone's energy systems, so I kind of do an intuitive scan to see because everyone has, for the most part, some systems that are balanced and are working well, right? And then a few that might be problematic. So I see where we need to go in order to bring about change for them. And then once I assess what's happening, then we start doing some energy work to start to bring balance to those systems that are out of alignment, or that, could use a little love and help and support. And also sometimes there's kind of homework that I'll assign, things you can do on your own, because the interesting thing is that our energy systems are electromagnetic, and so are our hands. So we can use our hands to change our own energies very easily. And there's certain things you can do every day to really start to groove a new pattern, and really reinforce that just using your hands to create so much more health for yourself. So sometimes I'll assign different homework exercises to kind of help someone continue the work on their own and really take back control of their own health and their own wellness. So yeah, that's kind of like a brief glimpse of what I do and how I work.
So it sounds like you work with a lot of people that are in transition, right? They're looking for a transformative outcome.
So I work with people that of all shapes and sizes. You know,
Okay.
usually people come to me because they have some sort of symptom. Not always. Sometimes people come to me because they have a goal they're looking
Okay.
to, you know, accomplish. But a lot of times people come to me with different symptoms or ailments of some kind, and they're just looking for help. They're looking for symptom relief.
Okay. So it could be like a headache, a backache, that kind of
Yeah,
thing, or
absolutely.
okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like anything physical, but also mental and emotional stuff too. You know, like they just been feeling down for a really long time, or they're feeling so worried about everything, you know, all types of different stuff.
Okay.
Because it all shows up in your energy systems.
Yeah. So, and the first thing you do is an energy scan and then work from
Yeah.
there.
Yep. That's how we start, because we have to figure out, you know, what in your energy systems is off before we can figure out how to improve them so we can get you better, right?
Understood.
Because our energies swirl and move and spiral and cross, and they go through our physical body and around our physical body, and they bring so much life force to whatever we're doing. But if there's a certain pathway that's just not getting the energy that it should, there's going to be problems. And we compensate, you know, our energy systems compensate just like we do if we have a physical injury, right?
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
if our right knee is out of whack, all of a sudden we start compensating on our left side more, right? It's the same thing. You know, our energy systems are very intelligent in that they can compensate for issues, but that can be problematic over time, and over months or over years. You know, you can develop some bad habits that can really end up creating some issues in your physical body, but also in your mental and your mind. You know, in your thought patterns are very related to our energies. And in also kind of your connection to something larger than yourself, like more like the spiritual aspect of it. You know, you can be very blocked in that arena too. So, you know, the energy systems are really all encompassing in terms of our lives.
So when people come to you and you do this energy scan, do you still use EFT, or is it more of a talk therapy, or are you doing body work? How's it working?
Yeah, so I do occasionally still use EFT. Some people
Okay.
just love EFT, and I love EFT too. So some people come to me and they just want EFT, and that's fine. You know, that's absolutely fine. But basically, like I will, so someone will come to me, and first with the scan, I usually just close my eyes and intuitively scan, and I'm checking, I'm like assessing, I'm going through a checklist, and I'm
Okay.
looking at all these different systems that of issues to see if things are balanced or if things are not. And then once I kind of figure out, okay, so I have an idea of what we need to do, then it really depends on the person. You know, there's lots of different ways to balance energies. That's the cool thing, because energies are so malleable, right? It's
Yeah.
not the same as the physical body. Like they're so malleable that they can shift very quickly. So sometimes we'll do guided visualizations to shift things. You know, EFT is really utilizing the meridians, which are these energy channels that carry enormous energy to different organs and organ systems, and do an enormous amount of the emotional processing load for our systems.
Okay.
So sometimes the EFT will come up. Sometimes I do kind of like divine light energy channeling, where I'm very specifically kind of sending waves of very healing energy to certain parts of the system to bring harmony, to bring balance. You know, and it really depends what people are open to and what they're willing to try, because some of the stuff I do, you know, can seem very woo-woo, can seem very out there, and I acknowledge that. But at the same time, you know, I all of this stuff I've been studying and practicing for many years and learning for many years. And this isn't something that I just, you know, took like
Came up with.
a weekend seminar and I'm like, oh, okay, like now I'm an advanced practitioner. Like
Right.
this is
Right.
years and years of study that's gone into this and practice and experience.
I would assume that you would attract people that are really open to your energy healing.
I do tend to attract a lot of people like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I love to do it. I have a calling to do that. You know, I have a really like a heart calling to do that work specifically. So I do think that I attract people, and I work with individuals, but I also work with groups. You know, that's
Okay.
another passion that I have. And I find that doing the kind of the energy channeling, working with these waves of healing energy works really, really well for groups, where it's more challenging to, at least in my experience, to use EFT or other things when you're in a group setting, because it's harder to cater it to each person, right?
Okay.
You can kind of do general like tapping scripts, which isn't bad, but when we're working with these waves of energy, you can really cater it to each person in a very individualized way. So that's how I do groups when I work with groups as well. Like I'm really scanning each person that comes to the group and sending what they need specifically in order to heal and balance for whatever their issues are.
So it sounds like they don't need to really talk about their trauma or whatever issue brought this on. And they might not even know that one thing's attached to the next. Right? If it's very subconscious.
Yeah, no, it's very true. They don't need to talk about it. Some people like to talk about it, and that's okay. Again, like I have no problem with that. Because some people just like to, but you really don't need to. And it's very true that often we don't even know what necessarily it is that sometimes we do know, right? Because sometimes there's just some horrific event, and after that, we started having some kind of an issue. As an example, when my uncle passed, who I was very, very close to, a few months later, I got really bad sciatica, like really, really bad. And I eventually realized it was because there was all this pain, all these emotions I hadn't processed with my uncle was throwing certain energy systems out of balance. The bladder meridian is this channel of energy that houses all of the vertebrae and all of the spinal cord. And I was storing an enormous amount of pain in my bladder meridian, which was really interfering with the flow of energy all through my spine, which ended up really disrupting the ability of my spine to kind of hold its healthy shape. And it went out of balance. My energies went out of balance first, and then the physical went out of balance eventually, right? And then, I had all this pressure on the sciatic nerve that created this really intense pain down the side of my leg. But it took me some time to figure that out, like what was really causing that. And I think that happens with a lot of people where they have these unprocessed emotions that sit in different areas that eventually throw their energies out of alignment to the point where it starts manifesting in some kind of physical symptom. And sometimes those symptoms can be really horrifyingly awful, like fibromyalgia or, other pain ailments where you're just in pain all the time and it never seems to go away. There's a lot of things that can happen, and energy work is so good with the chronic stuff. It's just so good with chronic issues. So that's one of the things I think that drew me to that, because I wanted to help people and help provide relief to people in these types of really challenging chronic situations.
Yeah, I think people don't quite understand or grasp that their subconscious is reflected in their body.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
that's when they're in pain, or if they're getting headaches, or especially backaches and all these things going wrong, that it's usually connected to something in the subconscious.
Absolutely.
And not necessarily that they did something. Now, sometimes they do something, but when it's chronic and when it's lingering, or it only shows up in certain situations, I have a child that has a backache, and and every time it flares up, I'm like, are you undergoing stress right now? She's like, I kind of am. Right. How did you know? I was like, it's kind of been a pattern for the last year now.
Right.
Like,
absolutely.
Yeah. So beautiful. So it's really interesting that you said you didn't want to go to med school, and both of your parents are, but you're really doing the same type of therapy in a different manner. It's exactly the same.
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah.
It's just a different style, right?
It's a different style of doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. It is funny. And I do think about that. One thing that I think about that's pretty funny is, I never felt like I was very intuitive. But I learned to develop, and now, I'm very kind of clairaudient and clairsentient. I feel and I hear and I sense and I perceive in all these different ways. And it's funny to me because my parents are both psychiatrists, and the paradigm for psychiatrists, generally speaking, not always, but generally, is that if you hear voices, you're crazy. Like, this is worst case scenario for
Yeah.
a psychiatrist, generally speaking, right? And of course, I work with angels and I work with like ascended masters, and I'm receiving communication from them as we're working, and it's, I'm hearing voices to some extent when we're doing that, and it's just so funny to me how different that is, from my parents' model.
Yeah. I'm curious, did you always have this ability, or has it developed over the years?
So my understanding is that I never had any of this ability. Like, I wasn't one of those kids who just started kind of doing this stuff,
Right.
not knowing what they were doing. And then I was totally blocked with all of this stuff.
Yep.
And I did an enormous amount of very intense and conscious practice, to develop. I may have had a talent like that I didn't know about,
Right.
but I really practice and work with it to kind of develop, these skills that I utilize every day now.
And do your parents know?
They do, they know, and believe it or not, they're very supportive. It took them some time to get on, as you can imagine. But the one interesting thing about a lot of these psychiatric diagnoses when it comes to hearing voices is there's always a line about like having a negative impact. It isn't just like, if you hear voices, you're considered. There's always has to be a negative impact, a negative influence, right? And actually, there was some researchers at Yale, some psychiatric research at Yale not that long ago, that were doing a study on mediums and psychics and people that kind of hear voices in a positive way, right? In a beneficial way, to try to see if they could somehow incorporate their experience to help, people that seem to get stuck in like this negative in this negative cycle. So I think even in the field of psychiatry, things are opening up a little bit more. But fortunately, my parents are totally on board with what I do and really support, my business.
That's good to know. Because I could see that being a little odd. But you've created a very successful practice out of it, and it's working for you. So how can they not agree?
At the end of the day, I think that's really what it comes down to, right?
Yeah. So how long have you had your practice going?
So I've been doing EFT for about 10 years.
Okay.
I started in 2013. I've been doing the more advanced energy scanning and energy work for maybe 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
It hasn't been as long that I've been doing that. But I've been seeing clients in some kind of therapeutic capacity for about 10 years.
Would you call yourself a medical medium, or is that completely different?
It's a really good question.
Thank you.
I don't call myself that. I don't identify. I actually know a really good one. That my family utilizes from time to time. And I know of like different medical mediums. That, I think, the way that I describe that as a little bit separate is, to me, that's more being able to diagnose physical stuff.
Okay.
From an intuitive scan, like, oh, you scan someone's body and see, oh, there's a tumor here, or oh, there's like some parasites in your small intestine, or there seems to be, I think that's a little bit of a different skill to be able to like physically pick up stuff.
Yep.
Now, so I don't describe myself as a medical medium.
Okay. You're strictly on the imbalance of energy in the body.
Yeah, I'm reading energies a lot more. And I guess the way that I think about it is that, if you have a physical issue, there's always going to be an energy system or two that is really struggling. And I'll be able to perceive that and help with that. So to me, I feel very comfortable just working on the energetic level because I know the amazing results that it can create, and like the health that it can bring.
I'm curious, do you ever do it in reverse? Like, someone comes to you and maybe it's through a struggle or something, like something that they're trying to change in their life, but there's not a physical ailment to go with it. Do you eventually just go, hey, let me scan your body too? Because there's probably a physical ailment coming up.
Yeah, that's a very good question. You know, I don't know how familiar you are with with the seven energy centers, or the chakras as they're called in some traditions. But each one has a theme. And if someone is coming to me stuck with some issue in their life, one of the things I think about is, okay, how could this be playing out in their chakras? Because you can get blocks in lots of issues, and our chakras actually hold an imprint of every memory we've ever experienced, which is one cool thing that they do. So for instance, if you're having a creative issue, there's almost certainly going to be some kind of imbalance in your second chakra, or in the sacral chakra, as some people call it. So, based on what the issue is, that it helps guide me to what systems to look at. So, I think that whatever the problem is, whether it's physical or whether it's some goal in life, something you're trying to accomplish that you haven't gotten there yet, I think that the energy systems are always at play.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I was just curious that something will show up
Yeah.
eventually.
Yeah, because sometimes people come to me, and because they're trying, they have an intention they haven't been able to manifest yet, right? And the way that I see that is that you have to manifest it internally, energetically first. You have to be able to get into that state where you can kind of feel some semblance of it. And I think if your energies are blocked, it becomes very challenging to do that. But when you clear something out, all of a sudden, someone can start focusing on a goal they've had for a long time, and they can start to feel it a little more in a real way. And they can maybe like visualize and get into the positive feelings that it's actually happening, right? That it's already happening. And they can hold that energetic imprint inside, which of course is the attractor field, which helps them manifest it and create it in the external world.
Yeah. Wow. It sounds like the work you do is pretty incredible. I haven't experienced it, but it's a wealth of knowledge to hear. And I kind of love that. I feel like you're pulling together the psychology of it and the energy. So it's like energy psychology, right?
Yeah.
Because you're
Absolutely.
pulling those two, the modalities together, and you're pulling what I like to say science and soul, right? There's a lot of science to soul work.
Yes,
And
there
pulling
is.
together the energies and everything.
Absolutely.
I love your work, Justin. You do some beautiful work in the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, do you have anything coming up or you'd like to tell people about? You did mention some group programs, if people are able to jump into those, or.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I offer these energy work groups every Monday and Thursday.
Okay.
That you can go to my website, which is tapintothelight.com, and you can sign up for them there. I also do a free group, like kind of a pro bono free group every Tuesday, and I have a Facebook group that links to that. And the name of the Facebook group is Introduction to Energy Work with Justin, which is kind of, for people who are just looking to dip their toe a little bit. They may not have experienced working this way before, and they're a little curious, but they're not ready to sign up for a full paid session yet. So I offer that as a way to, just get a little bit of the experience of it.
I like that. So I'm just curious, what do you do in that, those free Tuesday sessions?
So what I do is, those usually are a lot larger. Okay. And so I kind of do, I do more or less the same thing that I would do on my Monday or Thursday group, but because they're bigger, each person doesn't get quite as much individualized work, right? You kind of get like a little bit less, but it still can be very beneficial.
I love it. And anything else coming up?
Yeah, that I would say that's it. That's it for now. Okay. And of course, I'm still available for individual sessions as well, because some people just prefer that. And I do 60-minute sessions, and you can book those through my website also, which is Tap Into the Light.
All right. So anything I forgot to ask that people should know? We talked about how people can get in touch with you. And I'd like to just say, if you're listening in your car, it's tapintothelight.com. And you can look at the show notes, not if you're driving though, But in the show notes will be Justin's full bio and your links as well.
Yeah, no, I think we covered everything.
Terrific. Well, thank you, Justin, so much for being a part of the show today and sharing all of your wisdom and your business with us.
And thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Well, thank you everyone for being a listener. And if you'd like to learn more about the Soul Professional movement and be a part of our free community, you can go to soulprofessional.com. That's soul, SOUL professional.com. We have some free networking, free master classes, and great people like Justin is part of the community collaborating together to bring your gifts to the world. So hope to see everyone there. Thanks again, Justin.
Thank you so much.